Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Kim here behind the Decentraland handle today, head of partnerships and marketing at the foundation. Thank you all for joining. We're excited to have you here. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Just want to wait for the space to fill up. If you all could help us retweeting the space, letting people know that we are getting started. But we are here and we are ready to do the official kickoff to the Decentraland Game Expo. So, everyone, I'm going to give it about 2 more minutes and then we are officially going to get started. Thank you. All right, everyone. Happy Game Expo Day. We're so excited to have this amazing crew of panelists here with us today from across the Web3 gaming space. So let's jump in. As I mentioned, I'm Kim. I'm the head of partnerships and marketing here at the foundation. For anyone that doesn't know, Decentraland is a virtual social world that can be played on the client desktop or on web. We recommend the Opera GX for the best experience if you are using web this week. Um, and today we are kicking off Game Expo. So this is our first ever Game Expo, and we're really excited to do this. It is a free event open to all. It is an opportunity to explore the future of Web3 gaming. Displayed across a virtual fairground, Game Expo will present a must-see arcade of amusement, showcasing some of the best games on the blockchain from leading studios, talented creators, and protocol partners. Throughout, you'll see 30 neon lit attractions. We have expo booths hosting a variety of games from strategy to RPG to adventure and puzzle. We have our Game Jam winners, so congrats to all of those teams. And we have over 20 free wearables and emotes for people to get along the way. So I know our community is going to be very excited about that and getting their looks all set for the week. But to kick us off, I would love to have our panelists do some quick intros. So today we have the team from Aura, and I believe that's Shantanu. Shantanu, is that the proper way to pronounce your name?
Yeah, you can just call me Shan. I think that's all
Hi,
right.
Sean. Welcome. All right, we have Gyro Blade, who's the product lead at PlayFi, and Ben Miller, director of partner marketing at Scale. So happy to have you all here. I would love for each of you to do a quick little intro about you, kind of how you got into Web3 and what your brand does. So I'll start with you, Sean.
Hey guys, a pleasure to be here, and really excited to be a part of the first edition of Decentraland Game Expo, and really excited to be on the opening space of the event. So, hey, I'm Shan from Aura. I'm the partnerships manager here, and what we're doing is we're trying to bring in all the gaming communities across the globe onto one platform using our tournaments protocol, which essentially helps uh, any gamer across the world, compete with any other gamer across the, to the on the other end of the globe to kind of play together, compete together, and share the winnings, or the winner takes it all, sort of a concept. We have a few new scoring formats that we've brought out for the games that we've recently onboarded, and feel free to go ahead, explore our platform, and we've just brought in a really new cool UI to our platform. So yeah, feel free to explore, join the tournaments. There are hundreds of dollars in prize pool for each tournament that goes live. You can, as a gamer, also create tournaments and take a cut out of those winnings. Feel free to engage with your audiences if you're a micro streamer or you're a famous KOL. And yeah, really excited to be a part of a panel where folks like Scale and PlayFi are here.
Awesome. Welcome. We're excited to have you on board. Let's go to Gyro.
Hey, Kim. Thanks so much for having me. Very excited to be here. So, I'm Gyro Blade. You can find me anywhere as JYRO Blade, pretty much across all the socials. And I'm actually originally a game developer based out of Brooklyn, New York. I currently work as the product lead over at PlayFi. So I got my start in games about 15 years ago. I've worked on all types of games, from arcade games, mobile games, PC games, first-person shooters, esports, all kind of stuff. And I've also been in Web3 space for a long time. I actually wrote for a cryptocurrency magazine in 2014. So I've been in both these spaces for quite a while. PlayFi is probably the project I'm most excited about across both of those environments that I've worked in. Essentially, at PlayFi, we are solving the problem of games data availability. Everybody knows that every game service, every game company has their own sort of very siloed off way of managing games data. You have Counter-Strike and Fortnite and League of Legends and all these different games that essentially don't talk to each other, they don't interact, and if you're lucky, you get an API to access them, and if it's a company like Nintendo, you just don't. And so at PlayFi, what we do is we take any real-time content with a big focus on games initially that's on a screen. So it can be esports, it can be fantasy sports, it can be real sports, it can be news, it can be reality television. We take those video feeds, we compress them down into essentially using our AI and decentralized network into a very simple, easy to read, highly indexed text document. So you imagine a half-hour game of Rocket League becomes 10 lines of text, and then anyone can action that in the same way that you'd action other on-chain data. So you can make prediction markets, you can make tournaments, you can make stat tracking for your favorite players and competitors. So that's what we're focused on over at PlayFi, is getting game and other real type screen content through our decentralized network and essentially into an on-chain way that not only can you leverage using our blockchain, but including all of our partners, where we'll build these oracles to access this data as well. And I'm really excited to be here talking about gaming, because it is a personal, huge passion of mine. It is what I've really love and care about. So really glad to talk about it with you all today.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Gyro. All right, passing it over to Ben.
Hey Kim, thanks for having me on here and representing Scale. So Scale is a EVM compatible modular scaling solution uh, that has zero gas fees. And Scale's been around for around 3 to 4 years in its current state, and it's currently processing around 50 to 60 million transactions a month. We work with a lot of gaming projects because, due to the gas-free nature of Scale, we can process a lot of transactions from a lot of users without any of those pesky fees getting put onto the end user. So, excited to talk about gaming. Excited to talk about the crypto gaming space, seeing how it's evolved from the early play to earn, uh, not really that exciting gaming, to where we're at now, which is a lot of fun games doing a lot of cool and unique ways that are utilizing the blockchain. So yeah, thanks again for having me. I'm excited to be here. I guess telling me a little bit of background about myself. Fell into the blockchain space via a friend who helped me degen into DeFi, into NFTs. Came across Scale because I decided I wanted to work in the space. Saw an opportunity where I would get to interact with and engage with a lot of really cool founders doing a lot of really cool things, and got scale pilled. And yeah, now I'm here, and this is a great panel. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Great. Thank you all. We're honored to have you all be a part of it, coming from so many different backgrounds and projects in gaming today. And we know there's so much advancement kind of happening across the board. So I would love to hear from all of you. What do you consider the most significant achievement in Web3 gaming to date, and kind of how that's impacted the industry? So we can kind of jump in however, but um, I will start here with Ben, and we can just raise your hand and jump in as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's a lot of games that are onboarding a lot of users right now. And I think anything right now that can go out and can say, hey, we've got 10,000 users, we've got 15,000 users, we've got 150,000 daily active users, is doing a lot to advance the space. And as long as we're doing it in a fun and engaging way, personally for me, it's seeing projects utilizing blockchain in the mobile casual style of game, where users are able to download an application and start playing right away and still have all of the benefits that come with blockchain technology without all of the inhibitors, which is a huge shift from where we've been. Most of the gaming population either doesn't like crypto or gets scared by something new, which is, download a wallet, make sure you have tokens in that wallet, all of the things that maybe for them seem a little bit foreign, which is natural. So I think that, one of the best advancements in this space is now folks are able to just download an application, start playing, or log in with a social app, with their Facebook, with their Google, with their X account, and start playing right away, right? It's getting users into the games, getting them playing. For instance, Scale has a project called Yomi Block Puzzle, which is downloadable on the Google Play Store, the App Store. And right now they have around 9 to 10,000 daily active users, including my parents, who asked me about what's a Scale game they can play. And I told them that one. And, it's one of those things, they didn't even know it was on blockchain. It was just a game that they like to sit around, after dinner or while they're waiting for one of the other one to get ready. They can sit there and play this simple and easy to learn game, as they're waiting. So I love it. I think that's where the game in the industry has advanced the most, and excited to see, what some of the other guests have to say.
100% for sure. I think the ability to not have to be Web3 first up front is key. We recently at Decentraland launched the social login. So you can log in with your X account, whatever you need. And I think that's been a huge improvement over that barrier to entry. So passing it over to Sean.
Yeah, I think what Ben said, of course, one of the key things today is that, you can just up and start playing the game without having to, follow a specific onboarding journey that over the past few years, a lot of Web3 games have struggled with. Today, I think what we can simply do is, I mean, all the games ever since since kids, we've played, games. You've had points, you've had XP, you've had some sort of in-game gems or whatever you want to call it. And today all of these can essentially be used very well from a back-end blockchain technology, and the user doesn't even have to know what they're getting into. It's as good as they're playing any other mobile game or any other PC game that they used to play long back. So it's the familiarity that I think it's still alive, and yet they're able to delve into a newer technology that will make their lives easier as gamers, and in the future, of course, bring in a lot more options to tradability and interoperability.
I'm going to continue off that. I think options is the word that I keep having in my head. It really is to me about options. I think that we were at a point in the past where being a game developer or a member of a games community meant that you were really limited in terms of tools, in terms of ways that you do a lot of your basic fundamental parts of building a game. And Web3 just gives you more options on how you want to do that. So previously, if you wanted to have a marketplace for your in-game items, you needed to make one and maintain it and balance the economy for it. But now you can put those assets into a open marketplace. It can be on OpenSea. It can be on just a blockchain. People can trade them freely. If you wanted to think of ways to, store player data, you simply had to write your own player data storage or pay some kind of generic AWS fit, and now you can store those types of elements on blockchain. That's where you can see what your players' avatars are, what their wallets are, what their login information is. You can see that with a whole bunch of different types of infrastructure, from personal identity to ownership to marketplaces. And I don't think any of these will ever wholesale replace these private elements, but I think what we're seeing is, both in terms of like the quotes Web 2 and Web 3 spaces, that line is just getting more and more blurred as big game studios look and say, you know what? I actually don't want to make an entire economy for my own game. Maybe I'll use something that already exists. And one of those options is a blockchain service. And you, at the same time, you see Web3 games going, well, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, we're going to make more integrations with these game engines that already exist, like Unity or Unreal, right? I think the line's getting more and more blurred. And I think we're just seeing that options are really key for community building, for ownership of assets, to storing data. And yeah, so I think that's the best advancement and we're right on that cusp. It's options for developers and options for players and communities of how they want to participate in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being stuck in one way or one platform is definitely limiting. And what we know about Web3 is people don't want barriers. They don't want rules to stick within. It's definitely more of that open source, open type culture. So I totally get that. As you all were talking about that, getting users on board, I would love to hear from you all some effective strategies you've seen in attracting and retaining players in this space. I love the idea of your parents just sitting playing a game. Those are typically not the people I can imagine Web3 gamers going after, but I mean, they're players and they're having a good time, so why not? So if anyone would like to kick it off, feel free, but would love to talk about strategies in attracting and retaining players.
A lot of it for me has been about meeting players where they are. It is very difficult often to convince people to migrate wholesale if you don't give them something they actually want or are looking for. I think Ben mentioned like that, his parents are playing this because it already feels familiar to them. Like this scale game wasn't something where it was like, oh, here's a new thing and this is why it's the best new technology and the most exciting. They was just like, this is a game I think you'll enjoy. And they were already there. They were already looking for a fun game to play for a few minutes while the other one was getting ready or whatever. There are lots of communities that already care about different genres of games or different types of monetization. There are Web3 audiences that deeply care about personal ownership of assets. And so building those bridges with the communities that are already there, giving people what they care about. It's so much harder to convince someone that they need this brand new product than to convince them that this thing they've always needed all along is right there in front of them. And so I think you get better retention that way. And I think that you get better retention when you then let them be evangelicals about it as well. If you empower your community to be like, I love scale games, or I love, PlayFi's tools, or I love, the experience that I'm having with these different types of games or engagements, you essentially get, in strictly game developer terms, you get people that are willing to essentially market and promote your game for free, and it's authentic, right? And I think players know when it's authentic. It's hard to match that with like paid advertising. So, and they're easier to do that when you meet them where they are. If they already care about it, it's so much easier to get them to get on board, stay on board, and then bring their friends and communities that also care about those things along.
Yeah, I think I'll just quickly jump right in here and recall a space that we Aura had hosted yesterday, and I think Ben was also there as one of the speakers. And a lot of the speakers sort of mentioned that the games themselves need to sell, the game itself to these gamers. You're not Gyro just mentioned. You're not really looking to tell them that Web3 or blockchain is the new big thing. It's going to change how the whole game will be, but the game itself needs to be something that the gamer wants to play. We don't want to go looking for something blockchain within a FIFA or within Assassin's Creed. We just want a great gameplay, as a gamer. So I think the game itself needs to be something that they need to meet, like Gara just mentioned, they need to meet the gamer there. It has to be something of that level, something of that quality. It needs to be fun. Foremost thing is it needs to be exciting for the gamer to keep them engaged. Over and above, of course, you can have multiple formats, multiple ways to bring in more audiences and go for more retention by giving them more prizes, more community, led ways to interact with each other, which is also one of the things that Web3 has done very well is the flat hierarchy with the community and the game developers themselves. But yeah, the game needs to be fun, of course. First thing.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I think we're all saying it here, but fun games is key. I think there's a lot in blockchain of folks extracting value out of things, right? I know, the pie in the sky version of crypto gaming is you own the assets, you have the immutability, the transparency that comes with blockchain technology, the decentralization of things. But for the time being, uh, it's still very much of people are playing the games because they're aiming to get something out of it, right? I'm playing towards an airdrop. I'm playing to receive a token. Um, so for the time being, the game needs to be fun. If it's not participating in one of those aspects, if you're not having the users that are airdrop farming, and then they're going to play your game, and then they're going to go to the next thing after that, or they're playing your game because they're trying to achieve a certain level to get a token and then move on to the next thing. Um, so having an aspect of funness, having it driving and focusing on building a sustainable community instead of going out and just playing to the vanity metrics of users and transactions and necessarily the things of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to run a campaign and I'm going to get a lot of people, that's going to get a lot of people excited towards this one singular event, and then they're all going to leave. Is an essential for a long-term success and growth of the industry as a whole, and starting to see projects that are focusing on that, focus on the gameplay, make sure that you have a solid user base before you get into, what are the tokenomics behind everything, or releasing a campaign that's incentivization focused. And how I'm seeing a lot of success there is, um, we all know there are a lot of KOLs, a lot of content creators in the space. Um, and some of them will show any project and any project that pays them, and there are other ones that are a bit more selective. And so what I found is the gaming projects that are a little bit more selective, and actually build a relationship with content creators who have a gaming audience and say, hey, we want you to play test the game. We want you to come in. We want you to play the game. We want you to give us honest feedback about it. And we're going to talk about it with you privately and publicly in front of folks. And we're okay with that. Critique us, give us, honest feedback about what you think our game needs in order to survive and to get better. And we're not going to have an ego about it, is I think one of the things that I really enjoy about this space versus the traditional gaming space where builders are making and creating games and then releasing them, and that's it. Um, Here the gamers are able to play, all various levels of the game from closed alphas through the full releases, and it gives them a sense of ownership, along with the project as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the benefit of, Web3, where everyone can kind of build together. As kind of building on top of that, how do we continue to build these like community centric games, or where communities are open to giving that feedback, input, and potentially building altogether, where communities want to be a part of and really participate in? I'll kick it off with PlayFi.
I've had the luxury of actually being a part of a lot of the indie game scene here in New York City for a long time. And a key element of being successful as an indie, I think, is the key element of being successful in Web3, which is you need to involve your community early and often. So, Ben just mentioned it so often that these big AAA studios, they just develop, in isolation. They think they know what's best for the users. And, honestly, they have the money and the experience that, one, they probably can pay to make it happen no matter what. And two, if it's a failure, it doesn't really matter to them. Whereas I think in a lot of indie and Web3 spaces, you need to actually build with your community, know where they're at, because if your game or your project doesn't connect with your community, you don't just make the next one. You can't just go, oh, well, we lost 100 million on this Call of Duty, but we'll make the next Call of Duty. You actually need to have every game, every project be impactful, be successful, and actually move the needle. And so you have to build early and often. It's something like I said, we can learn from these smaller game development studios that every day, they're chatting with their community in Discord. Every week, they're putting out a new alpha build. They're getting constant feedback and iteration and play testing. And not only does that, one, let you build a better product on a smaller budget, but two, it lets your community feel like they have buy-in and agency. They can see the feedback that they give every week going right into the game. They can see the input that they have changing your ecosystem and your economy. And so you get to build people that when they look at the game at the end of the day, they have a personal attachment to it. There's something that they care about because they're a part of it, and not just something that's handed to them as in like a here, go play this. And so Web3 communities are perfectly set up for that because Web3 communities are engaged and active and really hungry for the data and the iteration that these game studios are just perfectly set up to deliver.
Anyone on the panel want to add to that? If not, I will. I think I'm going to jump in and say, completely agree. I mean, I know we see so many members of our own communities right here in this chat. I see a variety of people with, Decentraland handles coming from Scale. I saw a Scale community account, and just being able to build together is one of the core ethos of Web3 as a whole. And so building those games in silo would be kind of counterintuitive to what we're all trying to build here. And so having those opportunities for alpha sessions with your community. We just did a first ever community summit in Argentina, which we invited our community members come to Argentina, see the new product we're building, give us feedback, and that new alpha for our client will be going live to the community members midsummer. So I think being able to get that feedback is invaluable. If your team is working towards a path of, we think this portion of the product will be most interesting, and you spend months, sometimes for these games, years going on that path, and you find out your core audience really wished it was path B, you're too far down the line. And many of these indie game studios, Web3 game studios, they don't have those budgets and the 500 person teams. A lot of times these teams are super nimble. They're doing it part-time even. And so being able to just jump into your Discord and say, hey, we're thinking about A or B, really gives the opportunity for your community, like you said, to craft it together. And I think that is the point of Web3, of just being able to integrate what everyone wants and open source and share and allow your community to do things collaboratively, which is what makes this space so unique.
One other thing I want to add is I want to make sure everybody understands this is also good business. Like, it is not a charity action to involve your community. It saves you money. If you're on a development budget, if you're trying to really get things right and build with your community, you will save money. You will create evangelicals. It will save you money on testing. It will save you money on marketing. It will save you money on game development as a studio. And as a player, you really get to be a part of that game development process in a meaningful way. And so it's not just like, oh, we should involve people because it's the nice thing to do or it's our ethos. Like, absolutely, those are true, but it is good business. Like, get your communities involved. And if you're in these communities, jump in on these playtests because you can contribute to the projects you care about. It is good for everybody.
100%. Absolutely. And as we're talking about building together, I would love to pass it to Sean to talk about like, how can strategic partnerships also improve that player engagement? So we talked about our community, but there's obviously other communities that make sense, or other brands. And what kind of partnerships have you seen that really allowed that Web3 ethos to play out?
Yeah. Talking about partnerships, right? Of course, everybody talks about the ecosystem, and a lot of the folks previously, in a few years back, have also tried to kind of build that ecosystem where everything is free flowing and very seamless. But nobody's really been able to achieve it because that's really not possible if you're not on Web3, right? Not like the EA Sports in itself it could have been a great ecosystem. They could have allowed interoperability between NBA and FIFA and so many other games that they've built out, but it hasn't been there, and they've not yet experimented with that. But what happens in Web3 is it's the easiest thing to do. The communities, what when we talk about our communities and your communities and their communities, it's all the same. We're all catering to these gamers that are really hungry for some action, some new games, something exciting that gets them added benefits. They're not really looking for something over the world that, okay, the whole gaming universe has changed overnight. They don't really want that. They just want a few additional benefits that will make everything exciting. And I think that's what brings strategic partnerships at the core of all of this, where when we as a platform who which doesn't build games, we go to these games and game studios and we tell them that, hey, you know what, we have a bunch of gamers sitting and waiting to try out your games. You can't really go out and connect with 100 other guilds that want to help you guys with building of your game, because you want some user feedback. We're there to help them out, and we don't really want anything in return, right? We just want our user pool and our community to be satisfied with the kind of games that they're going to be seeing coming in the next couple of years or in the next decade or so. And it's nice to let the users know that these game studios are making a lot of progress with what mistakes they've made earlier, and they're now learning from it. So it really helps when we go to chains and when we go to these game studios who are, for example, indie developers, and they don't have the budgets to kind of go all out there, and they're just making one single game and they can't really make so many mistakes. But we are there to help them. That's what helps. That's what makes this Web3 community like the best community ever across the globe.
Yeah, I want to add, and that's a great point there. Those were, I think everything boils down to, a lot of it is the relationships that take place between, to an extent, the games, the chains, and then, the communities that are out there that are helping to grow awareness around projects. At Scale, we've built out a program called the Scale Ecosystem Accelerator Program. And really, the whole goal of the program is to connect these Web3 builders with best-in-class services providers across the industry, ranging from launchpads and incubators who can help game developers learn some of the intricacies about actually building out more of a business, to content creators, marketing agencies who can bring in Discord mods to make sure that the Discord is running smoothly, to play testers, to all aspects of the business that goes into creating a game and marketing a game, versus a game developer who's coming in, who maybe is an indie developer who says, I'm building out this awesome game, but maybe I'm not the best at driving an audience to it, so I need help with that, or I need help with understanding the back end side. I just need to focus on the development of my project, and maybe I need some tooling. There's some indie developers within the Scale ecosystem who build out toolkits that specifically help game projects with Unity, building on Unity to integrate with the Scale network. So the strategic partnerships that are involved in this space, I think, are essential to the success of the individual projects and to the industry as a whole, because it's everybody pitching in and providing the expertise where they have it to ensure that the project finds the success that they're looking for.
It is kind of funny, right? Like you would think that these different blockchain gaming spaces or infrastructure companies would almost be like, competing with each other or trying to like, adversaries in some way. But I think the fact that we're all here on this panel, right, is a perfect example of the fact that it's quite the opposite. Like we're all trying to grow the space. We're all trying to like, collaborate. I know for sure that like both Aura, Scale, your Twitters are filled with collaborations, right? Like so is ours. And that's so important because it's about, working with all these different organizations collaboratively. And I think that's something that, there's collaborations in other industries for sure, but the amount of partnerships and collaborations that are announced by Web3 organizations is just so far ahead of all these. And it's because no one's enemies here. We're not trying to, eat each other's lunches. Like we're just trying to bring more food to the picnic. And so, yeah, it's so important. And it is probably my favorite part about just like the difference between Web3 and a lot of other spaces is it's just collaborative. Like I don't encounter animosity or adversarial or even from the community, really, any sort of like negativity about that. Everyone's excited about a new partnership. It's just growing the space is awesome.
100%.
Yeah, So sorry, Kim. I'll just add on to this here. I think what Guy was saying, it's absolutely right. A bunch of our partnerships, I think 99% of the partnerships or collaborations that we've announced have been, regardless of what uh, any money benefit or monetary benefits out there. It's all because we all want to be a part of this huge family where everybody helps everyone out. And I think the other collaborations that happen in the, let's just call them the non Web3 world, it's all about how much can we pay you, or what are you bringing to the table. It's not where people are trying to figure out a big problem that exists, which is let's call it Web3 adoption, or bringing a better build game to the community. uh, Everything else boils down to us becoming a family, one big family where we're all helping each other out, figure out who will be the one winner, and then we can all kind of coexist in that space where everyone's figure out the correct way of bringing better games and better experiences to these gamers.
Absolutely. I think you can see in just how some of these panels come about, all of the partnerships, like everyone really does want to work together. We say a lot in Decentraland, the rising tide lifts all ships, which I know so cliche and we all use it, but it's so true. There are so many opportunities for us all to work together, learn from one another. I mean, this space is evolving so fast that if we all had to work individually, we wouldn't get anywhere. It changes too quick. So I appreciate everyone's willingness kind of to work. On that note, would love to ask a question here just about how we could together address like scalability issues in Web3. Like, what are some of the most critical challenges we're facing? I will start with Ben, and I know we have a few questions. So after this from the audience. So after this, we'll open it up and take some of the audience questions as well.
Yeah, and this is a great question, and it's one I think we get faced on a daily basis, and the projects definitely get faced with. Awareness is a key aspect, and I think we've covered that awareness, right? And that's why everybody has these different partnerships they're building out to try and reach the different audiences. I think one of the issues with scalability right now that the crypto gaming space is facing is not to our fault here, but crypto gaming lives on Twitter. But the majority of gamers don't live on Twitter. And so, it's bridging out into and finding where the gamers, the billions of gamers that are around the world are, and finding them in the spaces that they're existing and going out and communicating and connecting with them and removing the stigma that blockchain has with current gamers. And I think there was a lot of harm done unintentionally by the last bull cycle with NFTs and the PFP collections, and how people thought this static image, all they had to do was right click and save it. I'm sure we all heard from 10, 20, 30, 40 friends and family that said, well, I own this image now because I just saved it to my desktop, without actually understanding what blockchain technology provides, and expanding beyond just having a good vibes community, and the utilities that come with blockchain. So there's an educational aspect. There's breaking into a larger core demographic aspect, which we're starting to see, and to toot Scale's own horn a little bit here, on the Scale network, because of the gas-free nature and the ability for pretty much every game that launches, does so with a social login, does so without having having to have a wallet created, without having to have a gas token, without having to have any of the things that the average person is going to look at and say, what, this is a step too far. I don't want to do this. I just want to download a game and start playing. I'm used to logging in, creating a profile, and being done. I don't know about all these other things. So the quality of games is improving, is great for awareness and scalability. I think removing all of the friction is great. And I think the next step is to see games, chains, all of these, aspects that go into growing the space, expanding beyond Twitter onto platforms like TikTok, onto Twitch, onto, more native spaces for gamers.
Absolutely. Sean or Gyro, you guys want to jump in there? Any challenges you think for the market that you're really focused on?
I feel it's kind of comes back to again meeting, and Ben definitely covered this, meeting the players where they are. I think the communities and social places are definitely an important part of it. But I think also just like the technological explanation in terms of like what is the value add is something that really needs to be refined, and we're getting there. I think the talking, there's account abstraction and paymasters and a lot of these technologies that, organizations are now kind of focusing on. Whereas I was at GDC 2 or 3 years ago, and really there was a ton of Web3 stuff. It was, sponsored by a bunch of the big names in Web3, GDC being the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. And there was kind of a weird split where some of the game companies that are Web3, I know they're Web3, but you wouldn't know they're Web3 at all because they just were showing games. They didn't have anything about blockchain. They didn't have anything about infrastructure. And so in a weird way, those games just looked kind of like worse games because they had some Web3 elements or they didn't have necessarily the funding or whatever. So you had those, which was kind of like, okay, so this is fine. And then you had other companies which were still very focused on, their whole pitch was like this many transactions per second, this many, this is our gas fees, this is our settlement times and stuff. And in the same time, you had a lot of people there going, okay, like I don't know what any of this means. Why should I care about finality? I don't have any sense of that. And I think what we're finding is game studios and Web3 infrastructure companies and just like everybody in the Web3 space is kind of finding the sweet spot between those now, which is we do need to highlight what's better about these technologies, or again, what's an option about these technologies for players, for game developers, for content creators. But we also need to make sure that we're landing them someplace they feel comfortable and we're meeting them in the spaces with the language that they understand. So you can't open up and be like, hi, we're starting a new gaming blockchain and we have stateless transactions using zero knowledge technology to ensure state settlement. They're like, I don't care about this, right? But you also can't be like, look at our games exclusively, because then they're like, I have games. We have games already. Okay, so it is that sweet spot of what is the value add. And I think, the groups on this call, everybody on this panel right now is figuring that out. I know we're figuring that out of how do we approach game developers and game players and say, we're not trying to make you do anything you don't want to do. We're actually giving you more options and opportunities to do all the things you've always wanted to do. And I think as a community, we're getting way, way better at that. And I think we're really, again, right at that inflection point where over the next 5-10 years, you're going to start to see Web3 technologies in a lot of places very quietly because they're going to be so important, but not the star of the show.
Yeah, this was our first year where Decentraland went to GDC. I was there as part of the team, and it was so interesting, as you say, walking around. There were not a ton of Web3 companies there that were openly sharing that they were Web3. But definitely some there, definitely interested. We led with, we're a virtual social world, and we had all the gameplay there showing at the booth. We had very few people actually pushing back on the Web3 side once they dove into it and were asking more questions. And honestly, with that community, I was expecting a lot more. So it was really cool to see that they were willing to jump in. A lot of question on ownership and those opportunities and options, like we talked about. So it was my first time doing GDC, but a good experience just to see what are the gaming community as a whole, not the Web3 gaming community. What are they looking for? What are they asking for? And what are they judging content on? And I think the biggest learning we had was just in general, all gamers care about is it fun? Is it fun to play? And I think a lot of people have been putting Web3 first, like it can do this, it can do this, it can do this, but is it fun? It should be the first question before we keep building any further. So it's such a basic game requirement, but I think making sure the fun elements are shown is what will be most important if we want to scale, because no one wants to play a game that's not fun. Jumping over to you, Sean.
Yeah, just wanted to add one last point. Where Ben mentioned we gotta find out where these gamers kind of exist. Then they're definitely not on Twitter, and even if they are there, uh, there's there's a larger population out there where we can't reach them. So, going to Twitch, going to TikTok, or wherever these guys are there, we need to go there. But one thing that we have to absolutely go back to the core, a concept is that we're building these games for them. So we absolutely need to take, their feedback into consideration. Understand that while KOLs are, bringing a lot of influence with them, and they're experienced gamers as well, but going to these micro streamers or to these local gaming guilds that don't exist online, but they're just in your old age gaming cafes, speaking from a lot of Asian countries as well. A lot of these gamers exist in small gaming cafes. We need to go back to them, ask them what they're looking for, what is the hook of the game that gets them to log in every night after work or after college, and they're just logging in back in again and again every night. What is the one thing that gets them to come back? What is that retention hook? So we need to go back to these communities and ask them, what do they want? That's the last thing, and which actually is supposed to be the first thing, but yeah, that's what we need to ask them. So yeah.
Totally. I completely agree. Always starting, I'm a marketer, so like the always starting with like ask your community before you assume what your community wants would definitely be the first step. I know we have some people that have asked questions, so I want to make sure we save some time. I have some more questions on our list, but we can get to them after. So, Tim, I know you've been waiting very patiently. I will bring you up as a speaker, and then we'll head to Jonathan. Tim, if you're there, hi, welcome. Do you have a question for the panelists?
I do, and thank you for bringing me up. I've enjoyed the space. I'm a Web2 developer, so I'm going to have some things that people are going to like and some things that aren't be liked. Um, when I look at gaming code, I think of it as a centralized black box type of code thing. However, it we do now have an opportunity to integrate with Web3, decentralized, blockchain. You can bring in people, they can buy things, they can have tokens, NFTs, all that stuff. That enhances the code base and the marketing opportunity. However, the bulk of the code is still centralized. So I'm wondering, I'm asking a question to the panel, how you kind of circle that square.
Yeah, I think
Does that make sense as a question? I mean, I'm throwing it out there.
no, I totally get the question, Tim. I'm happy to take a first stab at it. So I think that the idea of everything being open source and community owned and totally decentralized is one of those things that Web3 ethos perhaps got a little too camped out in originally. It is just the truth that there is going to be some core concentration of people that are doing the creation of the game, the management of the assets, the development of the code base, for sure. I come from Web2 games, right? I've been working in that space for 15 years, and it is not, I think, about giving players total ownership over every single aspect. It's not a community GitHub where everyone can submit what they want. Some games may take an approach more similar to that, but I think what we'll find is the vast majority of games are going to find the space where certain elements of their game, maybe their player accounts, maybe their NFT, like ownership over like in-game assets as NFTs, perhaps the marketplaces, perhaps things that are related to like personal identity. Those things are the kind of things that we can pick and choose what we want to have available to be essentially owned or operated by the community. And so I don't expect there is a single blockchain game that's being developed today that isn't using a centralized service like AWS for storing some data, or using a centralized game development tool like Unity, right? Like that's just going to be the truth in the future. But I think it's about, again, opening up the parts of your game, your economy, and your content that you don't want to hoard. Maybe it's player data, and you can expose that using tools like PlayFi, or maybe it's NFT ownership, or maybe it's marketplaces. So game developers, I think, are going to pick what's the highest impact for them and their communities and their games, what's the best return on effort for them. and then open up those elements. I don't think we'll ever get away from having an AWS server that stores, a bunch of player data records that we need and just don't need to be totally exposed to the public.
So to refine the question, the game part of the code is kind of centralized. I mean, like the gaming part, it's just the hooks that go out to a blockchain for tokenization or buying. That's where we're calling it Web3. And I'd love to hear Aura's response on that.
Yeah, so I think first thought that came to my mind is the option, like Gyro mentioned, right? The option to give the user or the gamer every option to choose from, and every ownership aspect along the game. It might be a little difficult as of this moment, but something that I heard on a space yesterday is that eventually what will happen is the gamer will have the choice to which scenario they want to play in at a different, at 10% of the game progress, and then again at 15% what they want to do. Do they want to buy a $5 sword, or do they want to buy a $70 sword? And then the aspect of letting the community also stream it, and then them losing it. So there are going to be multiple developments over the next few years. But I think, like Gyro mentioned, initially when Web3 gaming started off, we kind of got very far-fetched and very involved into what we can achieve in the next 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know when that's going to happen, but as of today, we're blurring the lines between Web 2 gaming and Web 3 gaming, which is going to call it gaming eventually, but it'll take some time to get there. What you're looking at.
Thank you, Ara. My question again has not been answered in that the majority of the gaming application is proprietary, it's centralized, and there are only hooks out to Web3 to interact with blockchain. Scale, I'll give you a chance to maybe answer. And I'm sorry, I'm not controversial here. I'm asking a legitimate question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think, most aspects of game development right now occur off chain, right? Which means that they're inherently centralized. They're owned by the game developers. We are seeing certain projects make the effort to build completely on chain, but we're not to a decentralization aspect at the moment where we can truly say that game development is decentralized. It's being built by the community. We can get there over time. But Tim, I think we're not, yeah, right now it is still, the game is proprietarily owned by the game developer, by the game publisher at this point in time. They're utilizing blockchain technology. They're starting to integrate it. And what we see at scale is this integration takes place in phases, right? Perhaps they start with just integrating their leaderboards on chain, and then they see how that goes. And so you're onboarding folks into Web3, into blockchain in that capacity. And then over time, you start adding more and more elements on chain. As you get comfortable with the new technology, as a game developer, you get comfortable with blockchain technology and blockchain development, because they're two inherently different things. Blockchain development and game development are not one and the same and one and equal, and you have experts in both fields. And I think there's going to be a knowledge shift and a knowledge transfer that takes place between both sides, and tooling is helpful in those instances. But yeah, I mean, I think we're still years away, and in my opinion, from where we want to get to. But the shift is taking place, and momentum is starting to build, in my opinion.
Thank you so
Thank
much, Scal. I appreciate all of your answers, and it was a very tough question. And Decentral, I appreciate you letting me ask that.
Of course, yeah. Thank you. We're all here to learn. So I'm going to jump to the next question because I know we're running short on time. Jonathan, I've added you as a speaker if you're able to ask your question. Jonathan, I may have been speaking as you were added, but you have the floor. Can anyone hear Jonathan?
Nope.
Okay. Jonathan, I don't know if you can talk, but I know you posted your question in the comments. So let me see if I can find it real quick and I can read it out. His question was, has the bloodbath in layoffs in the gaming industry been a source of new talent for the GameFi Web3 P2E sector? I can answer from our side first, and then if you others want to jump in. But I do think there's been an opportunity if people in the traditional sector have unfortunately been laid off or are looking for new opportunities to jump into Web3 and learn. There are a ton of transferable skills. I know from the Decentraland side, we are currently hiring for senior Unity developers. So if anyone out there is a Unity developer, jump over to our job board. We've been hiring people from the gaming industry in the past. Our new social media manager comes from that industry as well. So tons of opportunities, and I do think it gives great access to really amazing talent. So other people have been making choices on their end based on their business needs, and for Web3 gaming, I think our business needs are growing. So if you are looking for opportunities in this space, definitely check out the job boards. Decentraland's hiring, and I will let the others speak as well. Go ahead, PlayFi.
It's a great opportunity. With the real big opportunity, I will say, is that as I'm watching my colleagues and their friends and their companies lay people off, and they're like, "Oh man, did you see? Like this big studio laid off 500 people." I kind of get to go, "Well, we're hiring." And they know we're a Web3 space. And I think that just puts us in such a good light compared to all these huge companies that are mismanaging their budgets and just like have no long-term strategy except for hire and then fire. We're like, well, we're still growing, we're still hiring. So it's a great opportunity to also move market and developer and player sentiments, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Aura.
Yeah, I think similar vibe, to what PlayFi just mentioned. I think that's the emotion all around. Anybody who's in the gaming industry and they've been unfortunately laid off. We're also, kind of always looking for talent. We're a small team of about 30 odd folks, and we're always looking to grow, from whether you're from the marketing side of things, even if you're not a hardcore gamer, or if you're a hardcore gamer, that's even better. We hold, weekend gaming sessions within the organization. So yeah, like 80% of the team is essentially gamers. So even if you're just a gamer, you have no role whatsoever in the industry, but you yourself are, one of the core reasons why we're all working together. So feel free to kind of ping us. We're always out there. You can DM us in Twitter, or go to LinkedIn or wherever you can find us.
And I'll add on to this, and I'll say, yeah, I mean, a lot of empathy goes out right now, having been in that situation before. The beauty of Web3 is we're on the cutting edge of the technology space. Scale is launching a job board for ecosystem in the coming weeks. So it's an opportunity to see and work with all sorts of different and get exposure to job openings that are available, ranging from small gaming studios to dev shops to guilds, gaming DAOs, across the board. There are openings. And I found, the best connections I've made have come from participating in Twitter spaces like this, being active, because it is such a small community that being active and engaging where the blockchain community is goes a long way in as bad as it sounds, building a brand, which is ultimately who you are and the services you can provide and what your expertise is. But there's a lot of opportunity out there in the space right now, for those that have not gone crazy in terms of spending with the what maybe mini bull run we had. If you want to work for a company that's built to last and that's sustainable, and there's a lot of those in the space right now that are looking to hire.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I know we're 3 minutes over, but we have one more requested question. So we will do that, and then I will wrap up this space. So, Human, I am bringing you up. Let's see. Are you there? Are you able to speak, Human?
Yes, thanks so much for having me speak here.
Great. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for the space. Yeah, absolutely. Just my quick question is, how are organizations addressing challenges such as privacy or anti-cheating tools that I think may be helpful, and especially in the context of Web3 gaming? I ask in part because at my startup, we are trying to build tools to address on-chain privacy, gaming privacy, and making some anti-cheating tools with ZKPs. Thanks a lot.
Does anyone want to jump on that question?
Sure, I'll talk about anti-cheat a little bit. So specifically, I mean, I'll talk just what we're doing at PlayFi. As I mentioned in my intro, we're focused on essentially taking games data from video feeds and other sources and running it through an AI processor and then storing it in essentially an on-chain way. And what that lets us do is it gives us another avenue where we can review content. So if you can imagine the way we're addressing some cheating things specifically is, let's say that you have 20 people uploading the Counter-Strike World Finals or a big local tournament or some sort of event like that, and 19 of them say that G2 Esports won, and one of them says that Cloud Esports won. Well, we know that that person's behavior is, fraudulent, right? So we can just look at lots of different data sources. You don't just have one source of truth because there are things that are verifiable on chain. We're also using zero knowledge proofs personally to verify that data is, as it's uploaded and secured and stored, is the same as it's accessed. And so you can make sure that the data being processed is immutable. And I think, it's less about just strictly cheating in the game, but obviously there are elements that blockchain helps solve with those as well. And that if you have elements of your game that are on chain, it is much harder to spoof that data going up to the chain. If there's a person that owns an asset, or if there's a result that's based on an on-chain event or an on-chain number generation, you can always walk it back and make sure that's as you expect. Or something like zero knowledge proofs, you can, of course, without even looking at the data, just check the expected output of the data. So it is a thing that I think Web3 is going to solve part of. There will always be a space for private centralized anti-cheat solutions for like in-game content, but those other elements, I think Web3 has a really great case for adding on to the verifiability of data.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was very insightful. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your question. All right, everyone, we're about 6 minutes over, so I just want to be cognizant of time for all of you. So we are going to wrap up this conversation. I'm going to have each guest one last thing you want people to take away or anything you want people to know that's coming up. So I will start with you, Sean, over at Aura.
Thank you so much for having us here today, and lovely audience, lovely speakers. Yeah, one thing that I just want to let everyone know, there's a big surprise coming to our platform next month. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter and join our Discord. We're scaling tournaments like crazy. We're bringing a bunch of games that you'd want to play. You'd discover newer games, and yeah, major surprise coming in next month. So stay tuned. And it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Kim.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. All right, Ben.
Yeah, and Kim, thanks for having us again. Just want to say, for anybody interested in everything going on in the Scale ecosystem, give us a follow here on Twitter. We're announcing new partnerships, new integrations on what seems at this point almost a daily basis. Head over to our website, scale.space. We've had a absolutely massive month so far in June. Some quick highlights: a strategic partnership with Unity for a developer program, partnerships with the Portal Network to get all the projects in the Scale ecosystem able to list on the Portal marketplace and buy and sell in-game assets with zero gas fees. And finally, a partnership that occurred with Sushi Swap. So right now you can go on Sushi and swap your tokens if you're into the DeFi space at all. I know this is a gaming area, a gaming Twitter Spaces, but I'd be remiss and my bosses would kill me if I didn't mention this. But we are live on Sushi Swap. You can swap your tokens with zero gas fees. You can do liquidity pooling with certain assets. I'll give a hint, there is some boosted APRs that are going to be taking place over in that space. And I would just say we've got amazing partnerships, amazing games on scale that are out there right now that are able to be played, whether you're a first-person shooter, a third-person shooter, an MMORPG fan, or the casual gamer. Please go and support your blockchain developers, no matter what chain they're building on. They're doing a lot of great work to advance the space and deserve the support from everybody that's here.
Definitely. Thanks, Ben. All right, wrapping it up with Gyro.
We got a lot going on in the next month or so. So we're currently doing a $50,000 giveaway. You can find that on our pinned tweet on our Twitter. So definitely follow us on Twitter. We have our testnet up and running, which has a bunch of cool things to do. It is fast. It is awesome. So you can come check out our testnet. Join our Discord for information about how to check that out. We also have our node sale coming up at the end of next month. So about a month from now, we're going to be doing our node sale, and that's going to power all this cool AI and data storage I've been talking about. And we also just literally today launched our airdrop campaign points dashboard. You can find that at airdrop.playfi.ai. And we're going to have our mainnet launch and token generation event later this year, probably September, October we're targeting. And so this is where you can start doing engagement, getting involved in the community, really having a lot of cool stuff going on there. And finally, we're always looking for people to partner with. We've already spoken to some of the people on this panel and some of the people in the audience, and we'd love to hear from more of you. So if you think what we're doing is interesting, or you'd love to be a case study for our technology, or just do some cross promotion together, please reach out to us on Twitter, on our socials, on our website. We'd love to work with you. And thanks again so much, Kim, for having us. This was really fun, and it was great chatting with all the other panelists.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. I know these panels take a lot of time and prep and organization, so we appreciate everyone coming together to all talk about gaming. For everyone in this space, this is the official kickoff to Game Expo. Expo Plaza is now live. Like I mentioned, there's over 20 wearables and emotes that are for free to claim throughout the event. So make sure you jump in, go explore, and 100% make sure you play some games this week. So the live schedule and everything that's going on, you can go to decentraland.org/game expo. And that's where you can find the schedule of live talks. This is one of 10 that we are doing over the next few days. So you will hear a lot from me. And we will be doing live tours, community tours, gaming conversations with the developers. So a lot of fun stuff happening this week. So be sure to follow along and help us share all of the exciting things that are happening during Game Expo. Thank you all so much for coming. Apologies for going over, and I hope to see you in World soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep
Thanks,
gaming.
everyone.
Bye.